You are listening to the IFH Podcast Network. For more amazing filmmaking and screenwriting podcasts, just go to ifhpodcastnetwork.com.
Hey everyone, thanks again for joining me for another episode of the Dave Bullis Podcast. Joining me today is Bojan Dulabic. Bojan is a Vancouver filmmaker, and he just released the zombie feature film Project Eugenics. Bojan, how are you, sir?
Good. Thank you for having me, my friend.
Oh, it's my pleasure. We met through Jason Brubaker's site. I end up meeting so many people because of Jason. I should really give him a producer credit for this podcast.
He's a great resource, man. I've written a few articles for his blog, and he's a great guy.
Yeah, and the article that got us introduced, so to speak, was the article he wrote called "How I Made a Zombie Film for $5,000." And At first, when I saw that, I thought Jason may have wrote that, and I was like, wow, Jason made another zombie film? And I said, oh, wait, it's this guy Bojan. He just wrote it. I started to learn more about you. So, that's what we're going to talk about on this podcast is, I'm sure a lot of people probably saw that and was thinking, my God, how do you make a zombie film for $5,000, let alone a feature zombie film, for $5,000? So, Bojan, to get started, how did you get into the film industry?
Me? Oh man, that goes back a long time. You know how every filmmaker has a story. When I was 7, my daddy bought me a camera and, I started filming. And I started to think about that. How did it actually happen with me? And I realized it actually goes as far back as when I was 5 years old. I'm originally from Bosnia, which is in Eastern Europe. And my mom actually had her own store. And in there, she also had a video store at the time. And so obviously, I think I was around 5. I started watching movies, and it was all Hollywood movies, and I loved it, right? And so in 1990, there was a war in Bosnia, and we moved to Germany, lived there as refugees. And I just loved movies. But not just movies. I mean, I think every kid loves movies. I love to watch making of, and, back then we're talking early 90s. There was no internet. There was no YouTube, so finding out how movies were made was not that easy. So luckily there were some shows, so I would watch as much as I could. And then in 1998, we moved to Croatia because I'm Croatian from Bosnia. So we moved there and we lived there for 3 years. And then we moved to Canada. And it was in Canada in high school, Winnipeg, city of Winnipeg, where I really developed an interest for acting and for filmmaking. And it was in grade 10. I just loved it. I started with simple slideshows, and I did my first short film in, I think it was my grade 12 class, English class. It was a creative project, and I was like, I don't feel like doing another paper. And I was like, hey man, can I make a movie? And my teacher was like, sure, yeah, why not? And so I did, and that was really when I started doing it and got more and more into it. Then I started doing videography. For actually the school division that my high school was part of, because at that time they saw some of my stuff that I was doing, and because for whatever project, school project that if I could do a video about it, I would, and so my teachers kind of gotten to know my filmmaking abilities and all that stuff. And so it started there, and then I went to the University of Winnipeg studying theater. I didn't take any film courses or anything. Everything when it comes to filmmaking was pretty much self-taught, by making a lot of mistakes, Yeah. And, you know how it goes. And then in 2007, I moved to Vancouver, where I am now, to, pursue acting and filmmaking. So, and just kept doing short films, my YouTube channel, web shows, that kind of stuff. And then in 2012, I finally decided, okay, I'm going to make my first feature, which was a comedy at the time. That one I actually made for $4,000. It was even less, but it was a lot simpler. It was set mostly in one location, and talking heads kind of comedy. When that one was done, because I'm a zombie nerd and sci-fi and horror geek, I was like, okay, you know what? I think I can do this. Initially, I actually, my goal was to make this movie for $3,000, but I realized, okay, I'm pushing it with 5, but with 3, that's just ridiculous. So yeah, then in when was it? Late 2013, early 2014, around there. I had this idea for this zombie flick and started writing. And by the summer, or what was it? Yeah, by late summer of 2014, I had my first draft, and then I started thinking about casting and all that. Started casting in October ish of 2014, and November 1st we started shooting. So it was very quick uh, process, and then editing took longer. But also, if you want to add one more crazy element to the mix, I also got married 3 months ago. So yeah, exactly. So obviously, that's important, and in many ways that's more important than the movie, but I'm a filmmaker, so we're crazy people. So yeah, I managed to make all that work. And I have an amazing wife who just, I can't thank her enough for putting up with me. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into it, you know.
Yeah, that was pretty quick from, having that initial idea to actually getting, to start shooting the film.
Mhm.
And, if there's one thing you do need when making a film, it's another crazy element to work against you, right?
Yep.
Uh, so how long did it take you to actually write the script then, from, from concept to actually writing a full page screenplay?
I would say it took about, until I had my first draft, I'd say about 7 months, 6, 7 months, around there. Yeah. Once I had the first draft, the rest was very, relatively quick. But getting it up there to the first draft, yeah, I'd say about that, around there.
So when you were writing the screenplay, did you try to like immerse yourself into zombie films? Because some of the other guests I've had on the show, one of the things that I've noticed is whatever their theme or genre they're writing for, all they will watch and read about is just that one thing. So I imagine if you use that method, all you were watching were zombie films. Now, did you follow that method?
Absolutely, absolutely. And as my wife will testify, because she hates horror, it was yes. I do the exact same thing. I mean, I bought a book about zombies, and I rewatch pretty much every zombie movie I have, and whatever else is on Netflix, and out there, because you have to. I mean, you really have to. I mean, to me, a zombie flick, a good zombie flick, it's not about the zombies, right? It's always about something else. And then obviously use the zombies to tell a story. So they're more a storytelling device. So to me, it was really, the main thing was, okay, what is this movie about? Figuring out what's my angle, because I mean, zombie movies have been done to death, obviously, and we all love it, but there's one every week coming out. So what can I offer that's a little unique, that's a little outside the box? So that was my main thing, as I was watching, like I said, all these zombie flicks, and reading and all that. And once I had that you know idea, and once I figured that out, then the rest was a lot easier. It still wasn't easy, but it was easier, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know exactly what you mean, and you're right though. There is seemingly a new zombie film coming out every week. I was just talking about it to my one friend, and he's not in the film industry, but he watches a ton of films, and he's like, you know what? I'm so sick of zombies. He's like, Dave, I don't want to watch any zombie films. I ended up trying to talk him into watching a zombie film after that, because I actually did. And one of the things that as producing movies, I've noticed is that they always ask, what is your unfair advantage? If you're pitching to somebody, what is your unfair advantage? What is our unique selling position? And that's something that you've kind of hit on there, because you have to make it what's going to be unique about your film. Anyone listening to this, I'm not even talking about making a zombie film. I'm talking about making any film. How are you going to make it unique that so it stands out from the crowd? And obviously, Bojan, one of the things you did was, you put your own style into it. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but actually, why don't I just ask you? So, what are some of the things that you wanted to make sure you got in there that made it sort of your style, made it your movie that you could help stand out?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, Growing up the way I did, moving around a lot and being part of different cultures and all that stuff, was great on one hand because it really gave me insight into just humanity, right? I mean, just understanding how the world works, right? But on the other hand, it also made me the constant outsider. I mean, as much as I tried to fit in, it's difficult, right? So that's kind of what I tried to bring to this. It's interestingly enough, if I can use that word for lack of a better word, the things that are happening lately, just around the world and all that, it really seems like a zombie flick in one hand, in the sense that um, one of the things, for example, I tried to accomplish in this movie was I'm trying to say without giving away, plot lines, but essentially a lot of it deals with information, what's happening, person A tells you this, person B tells you this, person C tells you this, and all that stuff. And you're kind of stuck in the middle going, I don't know what's going on, So that was kind of what I tried to bring into it. A safe confusion. I watched an interview with Tarantino a long time ago where he talked about, I think he was talking about Reservoir Dogs or Pulp Fiction, one of the two, and he was talking about this concept that he calls a safe confusion, where you want the audience to be confused in terms of, okay, what's going on, but at the same time it has to be safe in the sense you haven't lost them, right? As you unfold the story, you want them to be safe and keep watching, but yet there's a certain amount of confusion they need to have, because that's when they'll engage more. So that's what I tried to do with the way I structured the story, which again, without giving too much away, it's a bit different, and it's not a simple, okay, from A to B kind of a scenario. So on one hand, I try to do that with the structure of the story, and I try to, like I said, I try to talk about real, well, quote unquote, real things that do happen in the world, which, the way the world is being portrayed by, whether it's the media, by just individuals, by, whoever it is. Because I do believe, that we live in, like I said, interesting times where we have so much access to technology. I mean, it is crazy, man. I'm sitting right now, you don't see it, but I'm sitting in front of two screens. I got my tablet, I got my phone. There's way too much technology in here. It would take me 5 seconds to look up anything, whatever I'm interested in. So that's great on one hand, but on the other hand, there's also, I feel, this confusion as to, what is going on in the world. Like I said, whether it's politics, whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. It's not my job as a filmmaker to tell you what's going on, because I don't think that's what we should be doing. But it's simply my job to talk about these things, and you make up your mind. I don't, I respect whatever opinions people have, but yeah, if that makes any sense, that's kind of what I try to bring into this, to make it more than just a just just a dumb zombie flick. Because, like I said, I love zombies, but it shouldn't just be about the zombies. It should be more than that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think The Walking Dead, it touches on that theme. And then obviously Romero, he really set the tone for all of it with Night of the Living Dead, and then he went into consumerism with Dawn of the Dead, and then we went into the whole Day of the Dead. I mean, I actually just rewatched Day of the Dead a while ago, and it actually was a lot better than I remembered. I remember, in high school watching the three of those, and I remember liking Dawn the most by far and away. And I came back and revisited Day of the Dead recently, and I was like, wow, this is a lot better than I remembered it. Maybe I was just too stupid as a kid. I don't know.
No, absolutely. No, I absolutely agree. I mean, interestingly enough, I mean, Romero is obviously one of my top zombie. Well, I think he is the top zombie god, film god. But interesting enough, it was actually Diary of the Dead. I don't know if you've seen that one. That I mean, I've seen all of them, but that one was really the one that stood out to me, and the one that I would say probably inspired me the most in terms of the what I want to talk about, because it does deal with different similar themes. just in the sense that everything's, well, it's slightly different, but technology plays a big part, and a certain, like I said, confusion as to what's going on, and manipulation. Yeah, that's the right word. So yeah, no, I agree. Romero was a big influence on me as well. I mean, there's plenty of them. If we step slightly out of the zombie genre, Robert Rodriguez is one of my top guys, just in terms of executing a movie. I mean, I'm sure I'm not the first one to say this. When I heard way back that when he made El Mariachi for $7,000, I was like, really? Get out of here! I read it somewhere in the book. This was before I started on my filmmaking journey, and I was like, good God, man! If he made that back in '92, why shouldn't I be able to do my version of it by today's standards, which should be better because technology is better, it's cheaper, all that stuff. So that's really, when this seed was planted in my head that, I don't need it. Yes, it would be great if I had $100,000, $1 million, whatever, right? I don't. But I'm pretty confident I can do this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we as filmmakers today, Jason and I talked about this too, was we have so much information being thrown at us. And a lot of the times, we end up not actually making a film. We talk about making a film. We sit there and we research every camera package. And this, Bojan, there's a new camera package coming out every other day. It's,
Yep.
Red is over there in Canon and Panasonic, and here's a Blackmagic. And I mean, it's a never ending deluge of new camera packages. And now you spend more time reading about cameras and lighting kits than you do actually writing a screenplay and going, hey, wait a minute, maybe I should make this. But wait, first I got to look at the new camera packages. I think Rode just released a new audio kit. I got to look at that. And I think that's sort of it's paralysis through analysis. That's the best way to describe it. And but it's good though that you read Rodriguez's book and then realized, hey, why couldn't I make this zombie film for $5,000?
No, absolutely. And to go back to the whole gear fetish, as I like to call it, absolutely, I agree. And I think we all suffer from that. I do too. Absolutely. You know, I, this evolution of technology in terms, filmmaking related technology is amazing. But yes, at some point you have to stop yourself and say, you know what, that's great. And yes, in reality, if I make this movie today, if I had waited a year longer, certain aspects of it would probably be easier to make. But then you're in this endless cycle where, yeah, you'll never make anything because, things are always getting better, easier. I mean, for this film, I used the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera, and I really wanted to use it for this flick because of various things, and we can certainly talk about that too. But if I had waited, for example, until now, I could have used the micro, what is it, the Blackmagic Micro Studio camera. They got this really small one, which would have allowed me to do even fancier shots. You know what I mean? So yeah, you can get crazy just thinking about all that stuff. So yeah, it's great, but on one hand, you have to stop yourself and say, yeah, do this now. And going back to Rodriguez, I mean, when I read about him in a different book and started reading his book and all that stuff, the one thing, and Jason talks about this too, the one thing that certainly filmmakers who are beginner filmmakers, there are certain myths that we start to believe, which is, well, you have to have whatever $1 million to make a movie, or you have to have 20 people on crew, to do all this blah blah. And don't get me wrong, it certainly, there are specific budgets for specific types of movies that you should have and all that. However, if you get creative, you can make, I'm not going to say you can make everything work, because there are certain things that really, probably not going to work, but most things you can. And, like Rodriguez said in an interview and in his book, take stock of what you have. Take stock of the relationships you have built and what do you have access to, and make a movie about that. I did that for my first movie. I did that for this movie. And I mean, you should always challenge yourself and, grow. So that's obviously important, but don't be afraid, man. Just get out and do it. And yeah, you're going to make mistakes. You in my opinion, the best thing I could have done for this movie and my other movie was not to think everything through. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times we become our own enemy when we start dissecting everything. I mean, you need to have a game plan, absolutely. But there are certain things where you'll just have to deal with it if it occurs, or, as it unfolds. Because you don't have all the answers. I mean, good God, man, I've been on set as an actor on professional sets, and I always love to observe the crew because, that's the filmmaker in me. And you think they have all the answers with millions of dollars of budgets? No. So sometimes you just take things as they are, but don't be afraid to just dive in there and, get your feet wet.
Yeah, very true. Oftentimes we think, we have to have this large amount of money to do things. And the key, I think, is if we are going to set out to make a movie and we're going to fund it ourselves, or even crowdfund, a certain amount of money, I think the script has to be written that way on purpose, meaning that, we're not going to be able to do all these wonderful special effects unless either A, you know how to do it personally, like you as the director or whoever know how to do that. And I've seen filmmakers do that. They're special effects guys by trade, so all the VFX stuff looks amazing. All the bullet time stuff. And then on the flip side of that, they're hoping to, maybe farm it out, maybe going to somewhere like Upwork or somewhere to find somebody maybe in like, India or something that can do it for a cheaper price. But, barring that, I think if you are going to rate, make a movie, and let's just say we have $1,000 to spend, like kind of like what Mark Duplass was recommending, just go making movies as cheap as possible to learn how to make movies. We should make that, we should write, hey, listen, what do I have access to? I have access to my car, my house, this woods next to me. I can use my Aunt Susie's house. How am I going to how can I make this into a movie that, is going to keep audiences engaged? Well, maybe I don't have enough for 90 minutes, but maybe I have enough for 20 minutes. So maybe I should make a short film instead and just build off from there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with everything. I mean, that's exactly what I tried to do on this one. What I really wanted to do on this one that I didn't do on the first one was having more actors, having more locations, right? I really wanted to step up the production value on that side, but of course, there's no budget really for those things. So I knew, okay, I have access to certain places. I shot at my brother's place. I shot at my buddy's place. I had access to a studio, so I was able to shoot some stuff there. For example, you talked about VFX. I'm not a professional VFX guy. However, I am actually getting more and more into it. But I knew that, okay, I can do certain things with VFX, and I do talk about this. I think I talked about that in the article as well. For example, I used Video Copilot's plugins for After Effects, and they allow me to animate, jets and drones and all that kind of stuff, and create certain shots that I couldn't have gotten otherwise, not with my budget, right? Mm-hmm. So understanding that, okay, I can bring this to the game. And I think I talk about this too in the article. I made use of stock footage, which in my opinion, stock footage, when used properly and sparingly and all that, there's nothing wrong with it. I know there's filmmakers who shy away from it, but to me, if you're using somebody else's music, what's the difference? It's somebody else's material, but like I said, as long as it supports your story and it makes sense, and you're not using it every 2 minutes or so, nothing wrong with it. So I made use of that. So I understood all these things as I was writing the script, and the way I structured the story I also structured it purposely that way because, like I said, I wanted more actors, and there's quite a few actors in this one, but I don't have the budget to pay them, But I figured, well, if I only use actors for 1, 2, maybe 3 days at the most, I think that can work, right? So I structured the script that way, where that's what ended up happening. Because at the end of the day, you have to understand that uh, you know you can't abuse other people. You know what I mean? I mean, yes, this is my dream, this is my passion and all that, but that's mine. It's not others. For other people, that's just a job, a gig. And when they're not getting paid, well, you got to be sensitive to that, right? So, and yeah, it's probably the actor in me as well. I've been on enough indie shoots where, you start to feel like you're being taken for granted in this one, you know? So I was thinking about all these things as I was, like I said, constructing the story, which is important. It's crucial because at the end of the day, I'd rather do you know, a smaller project but do it right than try to attempt this epic thing where at the end of the day, I burn out and I don't even finish it the way I want. I owe money to gazillions of people and everyone hates me. You know what I mean? This way, I'm good.
Yeah, and that's I made a mistake like that when I first started. I tried to make something way too epic for like my second or third movie. This movie will never see the light. No, it was my third movie. That's right. Because my second and third short films will never ever see the light of day. But the third one somebody actually has on a DVD, and if I ever even got a modicum of success, I know somebody would be like, "Hey, look at this! This is Dave Willis's thing." Um, but basically, there was a lot of gunplay,
Mhm.
and I had this is when Video Copilot. I actually have that DVD as well. I actually got the DVD for I think Christmas, or maybe I bought it myself. And what happened was I was all set to do I did all the choreography worked out. Well, one by one, I had my crew drop out. So now I'm doing like not only 3 roles and 4 roles, now I'm doing like 6 or 7 roles. So now it's down to me, my cinematographer, because this was a whole new team. I've never worked with these guys before.
Mhm.
And as the day went on, I just had more and more problems kept creeping up that, I could have worked out had I had more people to fight these fires for me while I fight these fires. Because now it's like, I'm going around trying to fix this and do that. And then, the place was supposed to be vacant. And then guess what happens? Here comes security. Who are you guys? You're not supposed to be here. And I'm like, yes, we are. I have been over this for months talking to you guys. I mean, it was a complete disaster. But the point I'm trying to make is if I had just done something even a slightly step backwards on a slightly smaller scale, I would have had a much better time. I would have had a much better finished product, and we probably would have gotten shot. Would have gotten everything shot that day, rather than having like pieces of it put together somewhere. And eventually I put together what was like a rough cut of a couple of days, and it was like you couldn't show this anywhere. It was unbearable to watch. Just everything that could went wrong did go wrong. My second and third student films, everything that could go wrong went wrong. It was unbelievable. We were just talking about making things that are epic. Uh, so if there's advice to pull from this from anybody listening, do not try to make like Godzilla or Lord of the Rings or Inglorious Bastards your first time. You will fail horribly.
Yep. Oh, I absolutely agree. I've done a fair share of mistakes on, like short films and all that, but I definitely, there was a lot of anxiety and fear on my first film, and you know, that's why that one, like I mentioned earlier, it's a comedy, mostly set in one location. It's two roommates, and it's in their apartment, and stuff starts to go wrong, and that kind of those kinds of scenarios. And we shot that one in 8 days, all on weekends, and you know that really that was a great sort of playground, learning ground for me to see. Okay, first of all, can I do that? Was 83 minutes, which is this one is also 80 minutes, so it's the same length. So that was a good opportunity for me to see, okay, can I actually make a feature, an 80-minute thing? Can I, because, a lot of filmmakers talk about that, but they've actually never done it. I didn't know what does it actually entail to make such a longer piece. At that point, my longest short was probably 12, 15 minutes, maybe. Um, so but there was a certain safe environment because, like I said, mostly shot in one location. It had four main actors, and then there was a few others, but it was mostly those four guys, right? And I was very happy when it was all done and with the end result, and it it boosted my what's the word, man? My not my ego, but my
Confidence?
confidence. Thank you, Jesus. I can talk. Yes, so it definitely boosted my confidence, and made me realize that okay, I think I'm ready to do something bigger. But that's a crucial moment right there, when it could have fallen apart easily if I had gone, just a slightly bigger than what I ended up doing. Um, it's a tricky thing, and I have many filmmaking friends, as we all do, and actor friends and all that, and some of them have never made a feature, some of them are still working on it, and some are recovering from it, as we all are. And it's always good to just be cognizant of okay, you should always have your own style, absolutely, but if people who have done it, talk to them. I love to talk to guys like you, other filmmakers, and just kind of bounce ideas off. Okay, this is what worked for me. I don't know if it's going to work for you, but this is what worked for me. And once you start doing that, once you start understanding this whole process, it definitely helps you. At least it helped me. So hopefully, when it's time for the next one, it'll be bigger. But like I said, I don't want to go overboard where that one's pretty much going to bury me.
Yeah, it's somebody once told me before, when I was starting out, they said, Dave, never listen to anybody in this business who teaches you how to make a film, who's never actually made a film. Never listen to anybody who's about how to write a script if they've never written a script. He said, this is all so hands-on that you can't just keep, there's a lot of theory in all of this. There's a lot of theory like, hey, I could, make it this way or that way. What you really need is that meat and potatoes, so to speak. And I actually wrote a book. It didn't get published. It's actually on a hard drive. I took everybody on this journey day by day, and I actually took a snapshot of my bank account, the production's bank account, everything from check stubs, receipts, my own like writings of how I dealt with problems with crew, cast, locations. And every day, at the end of every day, or at the beginning of every day, I would write something. At the end of every day, I would write something. So like day one had a beginning, and this is what happened. This is what we're planning on doing. And then at the end of the day, I would come back and write this, and I would give you snapshots. I compiled it all together into a book with this TV pilot,
Mm-hmm.
and I actually pitched it, and a lot of places were like, this is a lot. And I said, well, it's just detailing, how did I come up with $1,000 very quickly? How did I get this money? How did I when PayPal shut down our crowdfunding campaign because they had no clue what it was, how did I come back from that? That's the stuff that you have to talk about. And then there's also like, I actually have my own private checklist of what I do now. Like I'm going to start a crowdfunding campaign next year. I know exactly what I'm going to do differently than what I did years ago. And even what I've done last year when I was helping out other friends, sometimes they would, send me their link or whatever. And I'd say, okay, just do this and this. And, don't worry about credit. It's just, when the time comes, just, retweet my stuff or help me out any way you can. But yeah, it's just about those relationships and actually cultivating it and, not being, just not being a jerk to people, I guess. Right.
Oh, absolutely. No, absolutely. I mean, first of all, that sounds like an amazing book, man. So I want to read that. No, but absolutely, that's exactly what it is. Going back to your comment about listening to people who've never actually made a film. I 100% agree. And we all have listened to these individuals who have these amazing theories. And at the end of the day, look, if you haven't done it yourself, or if you, unless you are talking about what someone else said, it's a theory. You know, I only talk about things that I've actually done. You know, because at the end of the day, I don't know, and I don't want to be the guy who gives you some BS, information, because I wouldn't want to be the one receiving BS information either. You know what I mean? So, no, absolutely, it's a tricky thing because, you know, obviously everyone has an opinion, and the one thing I always like to do, whenever I meet, let's say filmmakers, and we start talking about everything, and you know, after I've met them, I look them up online just to see, okay, has this person actually done something? Because you know, if they have given me so many information and all that, I want to see where that actually comes from. And in some cases, you're positively surprised. You go, holy crap, wow, they've done amazingly. I want to talk more to this person. And then there's situations where you go, I see nothing here. I see absolutely nothing. So at that point, you kind of go, I don't know, man, I don't know. And it's the same thing. I have my YouTube channel where I have a show called Filmmaking Today, where I talk about it's all different things, gear I use, techniques I use for my film and my projects. And I always, from the beginning, I told myself I will only talk about things that I'm actually doing, you know, um, because again, there's so many videos about, all kinds of things, um, coming from people who've actually never done it. I kind of have an issue with, as an actor, I also have an issue with, acting coaches, because you got to be careful with that. You take a workshop with person X, and you look them up and you see they have actually less gigs than you. So it's like, okay, I technically I'm more qualified to teach this course. You know what I mean? So this is not a good idea. So yeah, I agree to put it in one sentence.
It's funny you mentioning acting coaches. There was actually an acting coach on my Facebook. He deleted me just recently. He was always inviting me to all his events in New York and stuff like that. And I actually one day watched one of his. I don't. It's not a reel. It's like a promo for his classes, and he acted like he was like the best actor who's ever existed. So I looked him up, and he was in virtually nothing. And I'm like, how the hell is this guy running acting classes who has done absolutely positively nothing? And so that's why when he deleted me, I'm like, I didn't even worry about it. I was like, oh well, because I have an app on my Facebook that tells when anybody deletes me, and
Yeah.
yeah. So I actually I was like, I don't even care anymore. So I took that app off because like uh, why even bother, right? I'm barely on Facebook anymore anyway. So as most people can tell, I go in there and this and that. But now I'm sorry. Now I'm getting off topic. But yeah, the now I'm talking about Facebook and but yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's like Alex Ferrari, he just had a post on his indiefilmhustle.com blog where he said, don't hire somebody just because they have a very good looking camera. That is a mistake that I made one time. And
Mhm.
the guy was talented, but he was also insane. And by the end, we were fighting back and forth. He was fighting with everybody. And, everyone kind of gave me the eye, like, you hired this guy? And I said, I was like, guys, I'm sorry. I tried to fire him. The producer wants to keep him because he's got, the red camera and he's got this, but it was a complete, disaster. And I afterwards, like, I was so burned out from the project, I didn't want to talk about it anymore. I was just, I told the producers, that guy completely sapped all the energy. Because Bojan, when you go into a film set, anybody, and it's whether it's you, me, Quentin Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez, we all have a finite amount of energy and patience and everything else. We all have at the beginning of the day, we have, you know, that those levels, and as you go on, going through everything, it gets whittled down. Certain things get taken out more than others, but by the end of the day, you're pretty much on empty, physically and mentally, and sometimes spiritually. And that's when you finally realize, wow, it does take a village to raise a child. Sometimes it does take a whole army to make a film, and this is why.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I don't think most people realize absolutely how exhausting this process is, especially in the in the indie film world, where everything's smaller, the budgets are smaller, everything. And absolutely, I have had my fair share of situations where whether it was dealing. I've been blessed to work with great casts, but there are certain situations where they might not understand that look, it's not just about you. I mean, again, I'm an actor, and when I'm on set, I understand that there are so many things happening at once, so many stars have to line up to make this one shot, and we all have to suck it up, essentially. And it's difficult. It absolutely is difficult. I mean, on this set, it was, a typical day would pretty much consist of me. I would have my audio guy. I would have, my makeup and prosthetics person, and then if I'm lucky, one more person, right? Sort of to help out a little bit of everything, and that's it. And then the actors, obviously, however many there were. So we're not talking, like I said, 20, 30 people on set, because I'm a strong believer that the more people you have on set as crew members, it all slows you down. And it's not about having a lot of people, it's about having the right amount of people, and yeah, sometimes I might go overboard in, maybe not having enough, but that's what allows me to shoot 7 to 10 pages a day, which is what I average. We shot this film in 10 days. And it's an exhausting process at the end of the day. I mean, I'm the first one on set. I'm the last one to leave. There've been plenty of days where I wouldn't even eat anything. Not because I don't want to eat. It's because of, when it's lunchtime, I'm going through my shot list and I'm going, okay, we got to get this done. We got to do this. I talk to my sound guy, my whoever it is, my prosthetics person, and that kind of stuff. So it's very exhausting. But I do believe that you have to have a certain amount of insanity as a filmmaker to attempt anything in this world, because I think any sane person would go, I'm good, man. I'll stick to my 9 to 5, So I am blessed with a certain insanity, which keeps me going,
And you need that little bit of insanity that when you say at the end of some of these projects, you'll say, never again am I going to do this. I don't care what comes along. And 6 months later, at most, you're like, damn, I should go make a movie. What the hell's going on here? Because I mean, like, my quick little story. It's been about 4 years since I actually made anything of my own. Like, I mean, that's not to say I haven't been on other people's sets or done this or done that. I'm just talking about my own stuff. The last thing I produced was about 4 years ago, and there's an interesting story about why it's been 4 years, but it's just make a long story short, it's crazy people. We had a crazy editor, and I finally looked at the guy that was the director, and because I recommended this guy, because all of a sudden he just kind of went berserk, and I'll tell the story on another podcast, but basically I was like, I apologize. I'm going to work to figure to solve this stuff. And that's at that point where I was like, I must be insane to keep wanting to come back and be a glutton for punishment with this stuff. It's like, my God. And, speaking of, of editing, actually one of the questions I want to ask you too, Bojan, was, what did you use to edit Project Eugenics?
I used Premiere Pro.
Okay.
For editing. I'm an Adobe nerd, right? So I use most of their products. So yeah, for editing, it was a Premiere Pro. I used to use Final Cut 7 a while ago, and on my last movie, my first movie, I actually was one of those people who switched to Final Cut 10, and I actually edited most of the movie in there, and it did not work out. Just my personal opinion. It's not what 7 used to be, so I went back to because before or somewhere in between there, I can't remember, I was using Premiere, and so I went back to Premiere, which I use exclusively now for my editing, and because I love the integration with Premiere Pro and After Effects. Just being able to send the sequence into After Effects, do whatever I need to do, and then keep working in it. So yeah, that
Yeah,
was that.
yeah. I use all the Adobe products as well. You can't beat that because all you do is literally you click a button, and I edit this podcast in Audition, and if
Hmm.
I, when I'm in Premiere, I can click a button and just say send audio to Audition, and I can work on all the audio problems. I can take out pops and clicks and stuff. I mean, it's amazingly easier. You actually couldn't get any easier, because I mean, maybe you could, but I mean, it's phenomenal the way it works together.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I also do graphic and web design related things. So, I obviously use Photoshop and Illustrator for all that. And, in my opinion, I know a lot of people hated when Adobe switched over to their Creative Cloud subscription-based model, and I actually love it. I think it's a great model. We're all constantly getting updates, and they're great. I mean, just recently I discovered their mobile apps, so you can actually create a LUT, a color lookup table using your phone. You just take a photo of whatever, let's say a sunset, and it will create those colors, and you can apply that to your video footage, and it's amazing. Just the integration, which goes back to what I said earlier, the advancements in this field, I mean technology in general, but especially this field, are so incredible. I mean, there's really no excuse not to make a film, whatever type of film, it doesn't matter. You know yes, 20, 30 years ago it was 10 times more difficult, and you needed to ask for permission, right? Like Jason always talks about, asking for permission. Nope, we're done with that. I'm not going to ask anyone for permission. I'm you know able to make my films the way they are, and obviously I want to grow the budgets and all that. I don't want to keep making $5,000 movies, but I'm not asking anyone for permission. And that's extremely empowering, and it really allows you to tell your story. Whether people like the movie or not, I have no impact on that, but this is my story. This is it. It's truly a director's cut. There's no one interfering. You know.
That's what a lot of filmmakers are doing now is they don't want they don't have to ask for permission. They don't have to wait for someone's notes to come in after seeing the dailies anymore. It's they can go out and they're the ones calling the shots. For instance, like M. Night Shyamalan, that's what he does now because
Mhm.
after he made After Earth, he said I don't want to do this whole studio system anymore. So he went out and made the Visit, and it was a lot more successful for him both financially and as an artist because now he didn't have anybody telling him what to do because he could do it himself. He made all his own calls. There was no notes, no one looking over his shoulder, and that's invaluable as a filmmaker. Like Robert Rodriguez also was talking about that recently when he said I'd rather have less money and more freedom than more money and I have to answer to 10,000 people. He said I'd easily rather have less money.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm right on board with that statement. I mean, my one of my goals is to show people, that okay, this is what I can do for $5,000. And by the way, that's 5,000 Canadian dollars, which in US is like $2 nowadays. Our dollar is worth nothing apparently. So, but anyway, so that is my goal, and I have absolutely no desire to make like 100 or $150 million blockbuster movie. I really don't, because knowing myself how passionate I get about these things, I probably get fired, for picking a fight with the wrong executive and all that stuff. And so those stories don't interest me, because I think you know, for 1 million, I mean, you look, especially in the horror field. Another one of my favorite directors is James Wan. He made the first Saw movie and the Insidious movies and all that. And I mean, you look at just those movies, all of them, all the Insidious movies. I think the first one had a budget of 800,000, I think, somewhere around there. And then, the budgets grew slowly, but they're still in couple of or a few $1 million range. Um, and you look at those movies and man, they're amazing. I mean, the horror fan in me, if you're into horror, I love it. And from a production point of view, I think it's done very well. So, I think, I mean, Spielberg talked about, this, and Lucas too, about, the implosion of Hollywood, which my opinion is I think something will happen in the next, little bit. The way I kind of see it, if you look at the history of Hollywood, um, you know, back in the late 60s when the studio system fell apart, right? And you had corporations buying all the studios and making the movies. And, um, that was sort of the first or the second wave, technically. The first wave was the one that started, then you had the second wave with the corporations. And I kind of look at this as the third wave, which is us indie guys, call it the YouTubers, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter, who are able. And I'm not talking about even myself here. I'm talking about in general. There's certainly plenty of other directors who are able to do much more than I am with small budgets. And you look at the stuff that they're doing for virtually nothing. And yes, most people don't get paid on those sets, but you know what? I have. There are indie projects that cost $150,000 and people still don't get paid. And then you look at movies where like 5,000 or 10,000. Well, I think if you make a movie for 10,000, just give the person another 10,000 and everyone would get paid. You know what I mean? But it would still be a great product. Whereas you start wondering, okay, the millions and millions of dollar budgets, what happened, man? Like where's the quality? Where, did everything go towards the catering budget? You know what I mean? It was like, you start to wonder. And yeah, so I firmly believe that we are part of the next wave, so to speak. Because at the end of the day, you can't keep having budgets in the $200 million range. I mean, you look at, the recent Terminator movie. I mean, if it wasn't for China and the money they made there, the movie obviously flopped. Let's not kid ourselves. You can say whatever you want. In North America, the movie flopped. But it didn't have to. It could have been something. I was praying it would be something as I was watching it. So yeah, I think there's a lot of change coming our way, and I think in the end it will be positive change if we just stick to our guns and say, look, we can tell these stories, and I'm not, if a producer comes to me and says, listen, we have a couple of million, we want you to direct this movie, I'm not going to be like, no, I'm an indie guy, no, I'm going to take the money, I'm going to make a movie. But absolutely, you're not stupid. But at the same time, if you came to me, you obviously trust that I can bring something to it. So let me tell my story, and that's easier to tell. It's easier to have that conversation with someone when you're talking about a $2 million production versus a 200 million. Yeah. So yes, it's I think a lot is going to happen, and some of it is already.
Yeah, I wonder, as I was talking in my last podcast interview with Brad Wilkie, a lot of this I think it's so accessible now, and we always talk about who is going to rise to the top. Is it just so overcrowded that it takes a rare instance of, the perfect storm of a network, of money, of this and that to rise to the top? Or is it just still the old-fashioned way where everything's still just going to rise to the top based upon quality? Meaning like, the Reservoir Dogs is still going to rise to the top, those types of movies. I actually feel both are true. Personally, I think that, even with, the influx of, filmmakers now, just in the past year or two, I really do think that, you're going to see the quality projects are always going to go to the top. You're going to, because, you always trust your friends most of all. So if your friend tells you, hey, listen, go watch, whatever movie, most of the time you're going to listen to them. You're going to say, hey, okay, I'll sit down, I'll carve out the time. But, I think with with a lot of these superhero movies, I think that's going to cause a lot of burnout. But then again, I said that like 2 years ago, and then they're still, churning them out, and they're still number one at the box office. and now Star Wars is coming out, and that's, let's face it, that's the unstoppable force right now. I don't even think Star Wars is a movie anymore. I think it's like a I don't even what it's almost like a need now. It's almost like on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's like Star Wars and then food and shelter and feelings of safety. I mean, it is just a phenom. I mean, and I see all these spin-offs, and I'm like, you know what? They could have 100 spin-offs. They could have movies come out until everybody right now is past, and our great grandchildren are still watching them. And you know what? I don't think it's ever going to stop. If they could just keep finding a new character to expand on, like, hey, see that guy in the cantina? Well, that's Rebulon 6, and he's going to do something now, and it's all just it's just all the continuation of this universe.
Hey man, don't underestimate Rebulon 6, man. That guy's got it going. Oh, absolutely. Look, I mean, it's human nature to yearn for entertainment. I mean, this has been true way before there have been movies and television and all that. I mean, we want to be entertained, so that will always be there. But I do believe, I agree with you, in the sense, the way I see it, I don't want the big blockbusters to go away, because, if you want to tell an epic story like a Star Wars type of story, there are certain budgets needed. That's what I'm saying. You can't make everything for, low budget. But I don't think that every movie needs to be that. The problem, in my opinion, the problem is that, I mean, good God, we have comedies now that cost 60, 70 million to make. Dude, it's a comedy. As long as you make people laugh, you're fine. Why? Why is my question. So, I think I think it needs to, balance itself out sort of, where, we still, I still want to see the big blockbusters coming out, whatever, a few of them a year and all that. But that should be a small segment. The rest of it, should be, reasonable budgets. And at the end of the day, it all goes back to story. I don't go to the theater as much as I used to, because frankly, when I look at, some of the movies, I'm like, I don't think it has knowing, like I said, knowing how the story has suffered in a lot of movies. I just go, you know what? I don't trust that this is going to be a good story, so I just don't go. And I wait until it's on Netflix, and then I give it a shot, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it isn't. So if you really focus on the story and the crucial part, which I don't know why execs seem to have a problem with that. If you hire a director because you think he or she is good, let them do their job, man. Let them do their job. If they're not good, then don't hire them in the first place. So, I think all that, like I said, the story needs to be number one. We're now at the time where, we don't get wowed anymore by technology, by CG and all that. And, I saw the new, I'm sure you have too, the new Batman versus Superman, or Superman versus Batman, whatever the order is, trailer. And, I'm more interested in the story, in the conflict between them, not so much about the CG, because I know the CG will be fine. You don't have to pimp it. It's 2015. We're able to do some amazing stuff with CG. So tell me more about the story. That's what I'm curious. And I think a lot of studios make the mistake where they show you all the CG, all the explosions, blah, blah, blah. And, no offense, it starts to look like a Michael Bay movie, I mean, so yeah, like I said, it's, yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. I think, on one hand, it won't go away, but on the other hand, I do think certain things will change. You know what I mean?
I concur. I think certain things will change. Because I mean, we always talk about theatrical releases too, and there was always that discussion of if independent films should try to go get a theatrical release. Now you actually had a theatrical screening. And I don't know, was that for one night or was that for a couple nights or?
Yeah, it was one night. Yeah.
Okay.
It
Now,
was, yeah.
I mean, now Do you feel, because now you did this for the one night then, so did you feel that that may have helped you, or do you feel that maybe next time you wouldn't do that again?
Uh, that's a good question. I do feel uh, I mean, I'm happy with the turnout because we had it on a Tuesday evening, a rainy Tuesday in Vancouver, and I was able to get people out, so that's an accomplishment, considering I'm a nobody, no name filmmaker. Um, Now for the next one, I don't think it has to happen. No, I don't think a theatrical release is crucial. Um, I honestly I don't know if I'm going to do it for the next one or not. For this one, I really wanted to do it because I felt that I had a certain momentum going, and I felt that okay, this could help, so let's just do it. And um, you know, like I said, I'm happy with the turnout and all that. But I think we're now at the time where, you know, including myself, like I said earlier, I don't really, for example, my wife and I bought tickets for Star Wars, obviously, like a month ago. I would actually, if I could stream that sucker in my living room on my nice big screen TV, in 2 weeks, whenever it comes out, I'd be happy to do that. I don't care about seeing it in the theater because, like I said, if I could stream it here in the comfort of my own home and have a good time and, popcorn and all that, I'm cool with that. So I think, people's mindset has changed a lot when it comes to that. In my opinion, your movie should be available wherever it can be available, sort of like the Netflix model. Um, because how people watch your stuff has changed drastically. I have a 15-year-old cousin, and I always like to use him as a guinea pig. And I asked him and a couple of his buddies, okay, so I was curious, do you guys care about cable? You know, and they're like, no, we care about the shows we watch. Okay, cool. So the shows you watch, do you care about watching it on a TV or how do you watch it? I'm like, I don't know. I watch it however I want on my phone, on my tablet, blah blah. So there's no, you know, I think with our generation and certainly with the older generation, the prime sort of experience of watching a movie is obviously the theater, and then at home. Not with these guys. Nah. The only thing they do care about doing on the big screen is gaming, and that's that. They want on the big screen. But other than that, they're okay with watching a movie on the or show on their phone. So yeah, going back to your question, I think it has helped, and I'm happy we did it. Um, I'm not sure if I'm going to do the next one, honestly. I'll because it might be 2 3 years by the time we make the next one, and who knows how much will change. How the landscape will change by then. You know, Hard to say.
Yeah, that's true. And by the way, I actually looked it up. As of this recording, December the 7th, 5,000 Canadian dollars equals 3,755 cents US dollars. So
There you go.
there's that. I wanted to look that up. So so now we we have a $1,300 surplus now from filming. But so you ended up putting the movie on VHX and it's available now.
Mhm.
You actually have a ton of extra footage on there, or extra, sorry, bonuses on there. You have, you have an audio commentary, you have a behind the scenes look, you have this special effects tutorial that you did. You even have your screenplay on there too. Is there a reason, why you chose VHX over maybe putting it on YouTube or even trying to get it on Netflix?
Yeah. Well, I haven't ruled out Netflix yet. But the reason I went with VHX, I used them for my first movie as well, and I just liked how because they're still relatively, a relatively new company, and I like how they're constantly improving their service. I don't get paid to say any of this, just my opinion, but I do like that every once in a while they're like, hey, you have this feature now, you have this feature. So they seem to understand that the landscape is changing rapidly, so they're, you know, um, keeping up. And I just love the fact that I can upload all my stuff, whatever I want. I can set the price. I mean, they take their cut from each transaction, but they don't dictate me how much I should sell a movie for. For example, iTunes, they do have their set prices. Last time I checked, anyway, could be wrong about that. So, and you have all the stats in terms of who downloaded or purchased your movie, rented your movie, whatever it is. So that was really the main reason, just control. At the end of the day, um, you know, you get used to, as an indie guy, you do get used to a certain amount of control you have over your project, right? And you spend so much time and energy, making it, and it would really suck that when it comes to distribution, all that gets taken away from you, which is usually what does happen. So that was the reason why I like a company like VHX. Now, having that said, like I said earlier, I want it to be available everywhere, and that's, like I said, in my opinion, how we view and consume entertainment has changed drastically. I don't have cable because I, the entertainment I watch is accessible via YouTube, via Netflix, whatever service it is, and that's good enough for me, man. So, yeah, that was the main reason, and yeah, going back to the special features, yeah, I always most of my film education also comes from making of features on DVDs and Blu-rays, right? So, when we moved to Canada in 2001, and we that's when I started watching Blu-rays because they weren't available in Europe. And when I saw, holy crap, there's an audio commentary, dude. I can now watch the movie and the director's talking about what I'm watching, how he did it and all that stuff. And it was, I was like, oh my God, moment. So, like I said, most of my education comes from that. And I always feel I want to do the same. You know, I guess it's a way of, giving back, if you want to call it that. Um, because I feel the more there are indie filmmakers, the better it is for everyone, because all of us will collectively sort of raise this industry to a level where, we can actually make money doing this. It's not just, okay, let's put my own money into this and you're never going to see anything from it. So yeah, that's the reason.
Yeah, and like Jason Brubaker was saying, some of these distribution deals are just completely inane, and nobody in the right mind would go for them. I actually knew somebody who they actually made. I probably put about 10,000 into their movie, and they were trying to distribute it. And when the time came, they only had one company that was willing to pay them, and they were going to pay him something ridiculous, like I think it was like $1,000 or $600, and they would have the rights for the movie for 5 years to show the movie in like some foreign country, and I think it was like, I think maybe in Cambodia or something, and the filmmaker was like, "What the hell kind of distribution deal is this?" Like, and they got full rights to the movie too. So for those 5 years, he couldn't sell it to anywhere else. It was all about. So it was really odd, and I don't know what they ended up doing with it. But I think this is the future too, where we if we did have a theatrical run with a film, I think it probably will end up being available the same day or maybe the day after on maybe a VHX or maybe YouTube, or even a digital download directly from that person's site. And hey, listen, it's $10 and or whatever the hell it might be, and you can get the bare bones version. You can get this version. Then you know what Draft House Films does. Hey, look, you can get the film, but then you also get a T-shirt, and or if you want the next package, you get a poster with it, and the next package you get the vinyl record with it, and I think stuff like that. The having those upselling packages and stuff are going to be the future as well. And
Mhm.
and I think it's just going to be again, excuse me, about building that market, building that audience, making sure you have a high quality project that you can actually do with the resources you have, and maybe not shooting too high for the moon, and crowdfunding, and keep working that audience, and seeing what you can come up with, and
Mhm.
and just and building from there. There was a really good article about, if you do build an audience for a film, what do you do with that audience after the film is over? Do you just sort of say, hey guys, well, it's been fun. It's been a fun year, us building this. So that's one of the things too, I think has to change is how people market films. I think Facebook fan pages, honestly, starting a new one for every film you do, I think it's going to get a little like ludicrous after a while because I know people who have like 7, 8 different Facebook pages for different films they've done, and then then there's that audience, and then there's this audience. But I think maybe if you had it under one umbrella, or maybe Facebook could change this, or maybe if you had it just for your production company, it's stuff like that I think are really going to be key to making sure that everyone still sees your stuff. And but then again, the email list is always going to be key. That email list is critical because all the social media stuff, we can talk about it for days, but the fact is it's rented space and they can change it without warning. They can change it. They can do whatever they want, and they never have to tell us about it. They don't owe us an explanation because, after all, it's a free product, and they're the ones putting on the money for it, and we're just sort of renting that space out.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, going back to the whole having multiple pages, absolutely. I mean, I have my mailing list, and initially when I put that together, I actually talked to someone about that, and a person who had his own mailing list that I was subscribed to, and I asked him, what should I do? Should I have one for this movie, for this, blah, blah? And he, to his credit, said, no, dude, have one, trust me. And so that's what I did. I treat my mailing list as a sort of like a VIP area. If you subscribe to it, you will always be the first one to get, clips. For example, if you go on the website Project Eugenics, you can watch the first 3 minutes and whatever is 40 seconds of the movie for free, right? Well, that was available to my newsletter subscribers months ago, right? So they were able to see it. And then, whenever I have coupons, discounts, and all that stuff, they are the first ones to, find out about it. And it's not just about this movie. Then, whenever I have videos for my YouTube channel, they are the first ones to get notified. So, that's my way of building an audience and, rewarding them. And to me, that's really how we're going to rise in this industry, in this indie industry, because at the end of the day, it all comes back to the fan base. You look a guy like Kevin Smith, another good example, who really has sort of cut himself off from Hollywood, like mainstream Hollywood in terms of filmmaking, who is, making more of his own stuff. Well, he's able to do that because he has had almost 20-year career in Hollywood, right? Well, I don't have that, so I have to adapt a slightly different model, which hopefully it's not going to take me 20 years to get there. But you look at YouTube guys, which that's sort of the model I'm adapting. Filmright is a great YouTube channel where they talk all about film related stuff, and they have their fan base, and that's the approach I'm taking, which is, okay, this is the stuff I do. I talk about film related stuff, whether it's gear, whether it's techniques, all that stuff. Subscribe to my newsletter. You'll get a book as free, which is I think it's called How to Make a Movie in Your Own Living Room, which talks about my first movie. And then you'll be the first one to get all my info, all my promo stuff and all that stuff. And it's working. I mean, it's definitely growing, and I'm happy with it. It's certainly not there where I want it to be at this point, but it's growing. So that's the main thing, and that's how we have to look at it. I know a lot of filmmakers, young filmmakers, our generation, who are still trying to adopt the old model, who aren't as active online, who don't have their own fan base and all that. And look, everyone, there are people every year who succeed with the old model. You write a script, it gets noticed by the right people, you get your funding. That's all great. But that's a very small percentage, And I don't want to build, put all my hopes and efforts into something that ultimately, yeah, might never be seen by anyone. And that's also why I have, an issue with film festivals these days, where, you know, I love film festivals. That's all great, but the reality is, 10 years ago, film festival X may have received 200 submissions. Now it's 2 million, or who knows, however. So, it's a lot more difficult to stand out. And I just think by building your own audience, by, having people dedicated to you and what it is that you're doing will in the long run help you. And there's a lot of examples of that where, it works on YouTube and online in general, right?
Yeah, it's very true. And one of the other things that I've noticed is that once somebody gets a following on YouTube, they tend to go right to Patreon, and they start a Patreon account to get some, to have people actually, fund them, whether it be 5, 10, $15 a month. I actually was researching Patreon, and some of those channels are pulling down a pretty good amount of money per month. I'm talking like 13, 15,000 per month.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know. This is what I always wonder about Patreon. I don't know how that divvies up between the members, or if that's just all has to go towards art, or if they're quitting their day jobs, and who the hell knows? Because I guess it's a case by case situation. But
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, so there's a lot of options now, which is a good thing. It's not a war of it's not a war anymore to get your film made. It's a war of eyeballs and ears. So you just have to sort of chug along and figure out, again, like we were saying when we started, how are you going to stand out? How are you going to stand out from the pack? And how are you going to make sure that people know who you're, as soon as people put your movie in, how are they going to know it's your movie? How are they going to know your style? And I think it's, I think that's a challenge now, is finding a voice. Because I know I struggle to find my voice sometimes. It's even in writing, even when it's just me with a memo pad and a pen. Because I still do it old school. I try to disconnect from technology when I'm writing. I don't. I save the laptop and the other stuff for later on. But for now, it's just a pen and a paper.
Mm-hmm.
But so that's now I lost track now. Now I'm talking about pens and papers. But but no, I think that's there are these options out there now, and I think a lot of filmmakers are trying to figure out how to actually make it work for them, is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, absolutely. And look, by no means have I figured it out. I just want to say that. I have figured out a lot, like I said, how to make a movie, but when it comes to distribution, that's still, that's a beast on its own. And on one hand, you just have to understand that things are changing constantly, and the things we talk about right now, a month from now, there might be another service that comes out that just blows it out of the water, right? So you have to be open to change. You can't be stuck in the old ways, because and I understand that the traditional way of making and distributing a movie has been there for 60 years, 60 plus years, well, more than that. So I get it. That's a significant time, in that industry. But much like when the first digital cameras came out 10-ish years ago, things have changed and things are changing, and you need to understand that. And I get why a Steven Spielberg type doesn't really care about it, because he doesn't have to, but a Bojan Dulabic type has to, because I don't have any of that, of what Steven Spielberg has. So yeah, be open to change and simply embrace it, and understand that making a movie nowadays is not actually that difficult anymore. It's difficult, but not as much. It's really, what do you do to get it noticed, to get it seen? That's really what we need to tackle, and that's what I'm constantly trying to figure out. I'm not worried about my next movie, how to make it. I mean, of course, I'm not going to be an arrogant prick and just be like, oh, I got it all figured out. I don't, but my bigger concern is, okay, how do I get it seen? How do I frankly make money? You have to make money off of it because, like I said, how else you going to keep going and make more movies? So that's a challenge. But the more services come out, like Patreon, like VHX, and all that, it makes me feel good. I want an explosion of those services because eventually we'll figure out something that is sustainable within that.
Yeah, and that's that's true too, because making money or making a profit on this is how you make your next film. If you go in and make a movie and it's just the goal is just for experience or what have you, and you spend like $2,000 and you're just like, look, I'm gonna put up on YouTube. I maybe this will give me some hits, maybe give me some subscribers, but I'm not gonna do this for the to make a profit or try to sell this. Then that's fine. But if you're serious about making this, as a profit, making it profitable, you have to actually have a business plan. You have to think this way. You can't just sort of go in and say, well, I hope things work out. Because eventually someone's going to come along. And this is a story I'll save for another time, but I have a friend of mine and he had that attitude. And finally a big distributor came to him and actually asked him for those materials, those business materials, those accounting materials and everything else. And he was like, I don't have anything. I can't give you the budget. I can't give you this. I can't give you that. And there's a couple of things they asked him for. And eventually they just sort of walked. Very interesting story. Maybe I'll tell it sometime, or I'll bring him on to tell it. But like you said, there's a lot of options out there. And Bojan, we've been talking for about an hour 20 now. So in closing, is there anything you wanted to maybe say? Any final thoughts or closing thoughts you wanted to add to this conversation?
I just want to obviously thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And I love what you're doing. Keep doing it. We need guys like you. And just want to just generally tell everyone, if you want to make a movie, make it, do it. Obviously, be smart about it. Think about all those things we've been talking about, but just do it, man. Life's way too short. And like I said, if you're smart about it, you can do all kinds of things. Also, if you are curious about my film, go projecteugenics.com. You can rent it, or you can purchase just a movie, or there's a Filmmaker edition, which has the making of features we talked about. And also, I have a promo code that I created just for the listeners here. If you get the Filmmaker edition and just punch in the coupon section, punch in podcast, and you'll get 30% off. So it's actually, for you Americans, it'll be even better. Oh, no, wait. I'm trying to think, is it in US or Canadian? Anyway, it'll be either better or it'll be the same. So yeah, it's $14.99, and then you'll get 30% off of that for the Filmmaker edition. So if anyone has ever any questions, just ask me. You can email me at info@dulabicstudio.com, DULABIC, or just look me up online. I'm very easily stockable online. So yeah.
Yeah, I found you. So
there you go. Yeah.
I want to say thank you very much for coming on, Bojan. Everyone, again, as always, I will link to everything we talked about in the show notes. I will even link to the article that Bojan wrote for Jason Brubaker's website about how he made the film for $5,000. And I'll link to everything else, all of the social media sites. Again, everyone, it's DaveBullis.com. Twitter, it's @Dave_Bullis. And I've been getting very into Instagram. So if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's just, again, @Dave_Bullis. I try to make everything uniformed. And because I hate Facebook anymore. And I tried to get out, Bojan. I deactivated my account. And then I got into this, talking to these people who are podcasters, and they're like, listen, Dave, we have a secret group that we don't talk about. We want to pull you in there. It's on Facebook. I go, no. I was like, no, I don't want to go back. And then I had to go back now, and I'm in their group. And it's an interesting group because the one guy I got a free T-shirt already out of it. Some guy was just like, hey, I got a podcast. You want some free T-shirts? I said, sure. Why not?
Dude, quitting Facebook is worse than quitting smoking or any of that. It's the ultimate vice. I tried. I can't. I just can't. Yeah, it's an interesting global phenomenon. Honestly, I think in 100 years, when people, archaeologists or researchers look back at this period, I think Facebook will be a big part. So yeah.
Yeah, they'll be like, "What the hell they do? They actually used to go on this Facebook thing? Oh, it's weird." Uh,
So they liked and poked each other, but like digitally. What is wrong with these people?
yeah, like what the hell was going on back in that time? Oh my God. But we want to say thanks again for coming on. And again, I wish you the best of luck. With not only with Project Eugenics, whatever you're doing whatever you're doing after Project Eugenics and all your future projects.
Thank you, my friend. And again, thank you for having me. And absolutely, keep on rocking, my friend.
Oh, thank you. You do the same, buddy.
Thank you.
Take care.
Find Dave at davebullis.com. Please make sure to subscribe and share the podcast.